Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, all of our Karmic Capitalists. I'm Adam Vasquez with my co-host, Denise Kohnke.
We don't practice, by the way, so that's why we step on each other's.
Yeah, that's right. For those who are new to this or just joining us or watching this recorded version, we try to keep this as organic as possible and live in an open sort of flowing discussion. And I will remind all of our viewers of that every week so they can forgive us, but also realize that we have an agenda, but we necessarily don't know where all of it's going to go based on where you all have questions or where the conversation leads us. So, and that's what our promise to you is you'll see us thinking out loud and are processing some of this stuff because we think that's important in teaching, because the teacher is the student. It ultimately is the ultimate student, right? And the best way to learn is to actually try to teach, right? So we are students of this, and we will think out loud, and I hope you forgive us for it.
Yes, and we'd like to do a little recap just for the people who are tuning in for the first time about what this is all about. And last week, for instance, we talked a lot about HR in general and how to hire a flow team. So given that we are Consciousness Incorporated, is the incorporated part is the business part. The consciousness part is our definition of consciousness, which is basically universal laws such as law of vibration, power versus force, scarcity, and all those fear-based things, and how we overcome that and get the highest consciousness incorporated into principles of business. So happy that you joined us today, because this is going to be a good one.
And Denise, our glorious co-host, is usual. She's glowing again today. She was definitely glowing last week, and she has got her aura out today.
Got the glow going on.
It is funny. Just on a side note, Denise and I, what happens off the screen? We might as well have just recorded another webinar. We were debating about how to determine, strategic planning, the tools, and some of the market opportunities.
Yeah, we were just arguing, actually.
I don't know if it's. I don't think we argue.
Fine. We both had a perspective on things. So we are not necessarily aligned.
Yeah, well, that's okay because we have different perspectives on it. We're aligned, and there's different truths because we have different perspectives and seen different work. So Denise and I are always trying to, I guess, synchronize our different areas and bring them together and make it better. It's just who we are, and there's never any offense to it. And that's why arguing is the wrong term. I think
arguing is the wrong term.
I think speaking the truth is the right way of saying it. And there's always some of that. So yeah, I think go ahead.
Yeah, totally. And what you said, make it better, is my personal, how I live my life in business. It's like, make it better. Somebody make it better. I can't be the last rung on quality or convenience. Make it better. So
we were talking about how do you identify opportunities to invent markets, right? And the various ways you can get there. There's multiple paths there. Obviously, Denise is a very skilled expert in it, and I believe I am too. So we have different paths, and they're all right. So always trying to consolidate and bring them together so we have the fastest path to you, just like we're talking about consciousness today and growing in a consciousness economy. So, we are going to share our truths, things that we know that have worked for us, and trends we see, the future, and all of that. And for those who are more interested in the things we talk about more on a technical level today from a market invention perspective, which many of you know that we do that as practitioners, we are going to be starting a new weekly live cast where we're actually going to teach this from a methodology perspective, because when we talk about market invention today, or just growing just in general in consciousness, just like consciousness, it's not, Denise and I don't own the IP on this. This isn't ours. Market invention is the same. I mean, I may have coined it in a book first, maybe, but honestly, Denise was doing this well before I started doing this. So like it's arrogant for me to even think. And the idea came out of the ether based on experiences. So then that's the universe's possession anyway. So it's general IP, right?
Correct.
It's everybody's. So, Denise and I were talking, and we got feedback from other people during the past week, just talking about, okay, this is great consciousness, business, incorporating the two. That was really cool. So let's talk about sort of growing. What is sales and marketing, and all of this stuff. We're not going to get too technical on the sales and marketing techniques themselves. We're just going to really try to talk about how it incorporates into this, and where when one is a higher vibration frequency and when one is the other, a lower level fear-based. So Denise, let's recap a little bit on couple things that we're going to cover, like the consciousness map itself, consciousness map of consciousness, for those who haven't joined us before. And we'll get into the presentation and we'll get into deep on it.
Yes, it's the consciousness map. It's fear and scarcity as motivators for messaging and communication strategy, which is in our world a no-no. And we're also kind of talking about economics here. And that's a point because we use big examples. Most of my work has been done in small and medium businesses, and we're using big examples to explain a point. But the point is relevant for any size business because the formulas are the same. The strategy is the same. It's just the sector or the industry you're talking about is different.
Great point. So go ahead, Denise. What were you going to say? We're going to jump into this, but this is a presentation that I recently gave at the International Leadership Association, and it was based on this broader topic of paradigm shifts in leadership, right?
Where was this? I mean,
so this was actually in Washington, D.C. this past weekend. I don't know the number of people there, but it was packed. It was at the Grand Hyatt, full capacity, a lot of really incredible keynotes. A lot of the top minds and think tanks were there talking about leadership and managing wisdom in times of crisis, so to speak.
Yeah,
globally, right? So this was a global conference, and it was great to be invited and be part of that process because, there was a lot of discussion on just basic sort of leadership principles, and that's good, right? I mean, but like we've talked about in the past, it's still surface level. You're not really getting to the heart and the depth of the issue. So it was really great to be able to talk about consciousness in itself, and how do you, as a leader, how do you grow your business, organization, team, culture, whatever, through this process? So I had a quick 15 minutes, with questions to present. It's a bit of a TED Talk format.
If you haven't noticed, Adam's a long talker.
Yes. So this was a good challenge for me.
It was a challenge.
So Denise is going to allow me us to sort of expand on these slides and some of this stuff. Like, there are some level setting that many of you know already, so bear with us, but it's important for those who are finding us for the first time to understand this. So I apologize for the reminder, but the refreshing is always good for all of us as we're talking about something new and breaking into a totally new way of doing business, such as the Karmic Capitalism model. So this is really about growing in a Karmic Capitalism based economy, and the differences that you need to consider from the old model of shareholder capitalism. So I'm going to add our slides here, and we're going to just jump into this here. All right. So this is the abridged version, folks, and we're going to get into it. So there's 3 points I want to hit, and we'll, Denise, ask questions, jump into this. I'm going to be driving a little bit of this presentation.
And we're also going audio file for a lot of the Spotify, Pandora system. So they're not up yet, but we will have to explain what these slides look like for
Yes, yes. So I will try to be as descriptive as possible. And Denise asked me questions if I'm off, and I start talking about with the assumption that you can see what we're talking about. So the market followers paradox is simply put, if you're not the leader of a market and or industry, anything you do to promote yourself promotes the market and the leader with it, right? And so the question is, so the question is, in the old, this has always been true. Okay. So this has always been true, but in the past, with say like Wonder Bread as an example, like sort of first sliced bread, so to speak. They weren't the first sliced bread, but they made it mainstream. You could buy yourself to the leadership position, meaning you could buy the shelf space, you could buy all the advertisements, and this is all pre-internet because that's where you got a lot of your information. Right now, post-internet, everybody can validate that point, right?
Right.
So if you're promoting in the leadership role and you're saying, hey, we're the best at sliced bread, so to speak, people are going to say, okay, I'm going to check this out, but I'm going to go out and Google or Bing or whatever you use, DuckDuckGo, and search for who else sells sliced bread. And what you're going to find is whoever researches this is going to potentially buy from you, but most of the time they're going to be buying from the leader because they will find that they are a leader, and all the metaphoric breadcrumbs are leading back to sliced bread, Wonder Bread.
Right. And this has been proven by massive research studies. Mm-hmm. McKinsey has did one probably about 20 years ago now and has redone it several times. And it has to do with the consumer's decision journey. Mm-hmm. And while we don't have a slide for this right now, we talk about that as a messaging matrix, because what happens, think about 4 quadrants. First quadrant, awareness. Someone comes in the journey through, oh, I know this. I'm aware of this. I'm going to Google this. And then they start Googling other things, which is the evaluation stage, stage 2. And then they go to the next stage where they're actually making a decision, which is stage 3. And that stage 3, guess what happens? The ones that survive this whole process are the ones that came in on awareness. So those were the leaders. Everybody else is discarded. Those were the leaders. And the leaders market differently. And they market to lead a category. So this is totally relevant because it aligns with the market follower paradox.
Right. So what we see here is Google interest over time. That's the number of people searching for branded search terms like Coca-Cola versus Pepsi. This isn't looking for generic terms like cola or anything like that, specifically Coca-Cola and Pepsi. And when I present this, I always ask the question, if anybody can tell me what those spikes are. So now I'm going to give the grand reveal of my question for everyone. These are Super Bowl sponsored halftime shows. So Coke is the clear leader in you could argue the cola category, but really the market as a belief system overall. So what happens is when Coca-Cola sponsors a halftime show, they receive the spike, as we can see in the 2 middle ones where they actually promoted. And then where we look at Pepsi interest over time, you can see where Pepsi's spike increases of the 4 different areas, the beginning and the end. They sponsored the halftime show. And you can see that Coca-Cola received the benefit from that spike as well. But when Coca-Cola presented, see, it doesn't work the other way around. No. When the leader promotes, the followers don't get the benefit from it. No. Now, they may get some benefits, so it's not absolute, but it's not the percentage of the other way around. So if you're promoting or advertising, even if you have, what does Pepsi spend? At least $1 billion in advertising annually. It's out there. Public. Someone can fact check me on that.
Yeah.
But even if you're spending $1 billion, you can't be the market leader.
No.
Which is totally depressing. Should be for all marketers out there, but there is hope You can, you just can't do it in their industry, in their market belief systems, and we'll talk
Right.
about that.
You can't play their game.
Right.
And the reference that I give clients always that aligns with this is if you've watched like McDonald's advertising through the years, McDonald's advertising sells hamburgers. Burger King advertising through the years, we're making gross generalization here, sells the differentiation between the Burger King hamburger and the McDonald's hamburger. McDonald's sells hamburgers, Burger King, Wendy's, they all sell the nuances of their hamburgers. So really, they are selling the concept of hamburgers.
Exactly.
So, and when you have a pie with market share in it, guess who wins? The market leader, because they own the hamburger market.
Absolutely.
So it's so sad for a challenger brand. It's like, I'm sorry, but you can't buy yourself to leadership, and you're just helping out the leader in your spend.
So that's point one, right? A really good point, and scares a lot of people, but there is hope. You can change this, and there's plenty of examples where challenger brands have toppled the market leader, but it is not the way you think it is, and it's not through just promotion alone, because advertising promotion is an exceptional tool, right? If nobody knows of you, then how can they make you the leader? Of course, but it's only to put gasoline on the fire. And what a lot of companies do is they try to put gasoline on the fire, and they have no logs or sustainable fuel underneath of it, right? And what I mean by that, and we'll get into that later, is the belief systems and the purpose that's behind them, so that when they stop the advertising or the gasoline, pouring it on the fire, their flame basically goes out.
Yeah,
right?
you're spending money to stay even.
Yep. And so I would say most e-commerce companies are stuck in this level of follower. So they will never be the leader, and most of their customers are transactional, and they will never come back for return purchase unless they keep giving them deals and promoting. So many of you who are listening or watching this are in a market follower paradox as we speak.
Yeah, if you're any kind of challenger, you are. However, there's lots of companies that are just fine with, maintaining their position in a sector where they're just, earning money, and they're happy with what they get.
Well,
and that's fine.
And yeah, as an example, depending on how you scale it. So like, you may not be the industry leader. Say if we use beer as an example, right? You may not be an industry leader like Budweiser, but Sam Adams is still the number one in microbrewing. A lot of people don't think of them as such, but they're a multi-billion-dollar company, and they're both in the beer industry category. However, there's a complete different set of beliefs of individuals that buy microbreweries and craft beer from the broad general Americana Pilsner, right?
Yeah. And if you look at the beer category, it's just a fun fact. Like in the last 5 years, there has been some shift. The shift has not been like, oh, the micro beers are taking market share. No, that didn't happen. What happened in the last few years is that, call it 5 years, because this stuff does not happen overnight.
Right.
But in the last 5 years, Anheuser-Busch lost about 6% market share to Constellation brands. The Constellation brands are, guess what? All these beers belong to the same company, Modelo, Corona, and Pacifico. They lost 6% market share to that. So kudos to Constellation brands for actually carving out and taking share. They did it right. So the asterisk is, it can happen, but it takes kind of a shift in advertising and marketing. It takes a total I'm all in to decide what my brands are going to be like. And they're very different than the Anheuser-Busch brands. They're not the
Right.
same.
Right. Anheuser-Busch is like a utility company in a way, a
Yeah.
generic utility company, where the Constellation brand, specifically even Corona, is a belief system. And they're both belief systems. Budweiser is a belief system just like Corona. So Constellation Brands has understood that. And we'll get into that later, but that's a key point, how we describe what markets are. So then second, some of you have watched our first episode, will recognize this slide. We talk about the Great Resignation, and it is not the Great Resignation. It is the Great Awakening. People are waking up. Individuals are finding consciousness, discovering it, or at the very least, they know something is wrong and what they're doing is not the truth, right?
Right.
So when we talk about this, really thinking about law of vibration, right? And your thoughts on law of vibration, Denise?
Well, we talked before about how truth is cultural. Truth is also generational. Truth is the first thing you learn when you're a kid. And then everything, but also when you're a grown up, the first thing you hear is truth. And then every other factoid that you hear after that is put through a relationship test with what you first knew. So if you're given the wrong information up front, you presume this is a heuristic that that's true, and then everything else has to be weighed against that. Okay, that's cultural. Culture, though, that's psychological, but culture brings different truths together. And what we're talking about is a universal truth. If
Right.
you strip all of culture down and you look at what is left, what is the universal truth, well, that actually correlates with numerical vibration, because like universal joy, peace, enlightening, love, that has a different vibe. Joy has a way different vibration than guilt, shame, bad things, fear, grief, totally different vibrations. And they're numerical.
Yeah, and what we're referring to, for those who can't see, we're talking about the map of consciousness from Dr. David Hawkins, where enlightenment is at the top at a 700 plus sort of level of power, versus at the bottom is shame at 20, which is force. So there's a big difference. So when you come from a place of peace, love, and joy, and make decisions and say market and promote or whatever, just making basic decisions for you personally and for others at a higher level, it's not a 1-for-1 based on shame and say joy. Meaning if Denise is in love and joy at the higher level and I'm in shame and guilt, we don't counteract each other. It would take thousands of me to counteract one Denise operating at that level. So when we talk about what it is, and we talk about law of vibration, which law of vibration simply states that everything has a vibration and a frequency. And if you think about what has been proven now in quantum physics with the wave particle duality, and what that says is a wave and a particle are the same. So that means a matter is a frequency, the matter itself. So that means everything is a frequency and nothing is solid. So we got to remember that even though it looks and feels solid, it is not solid. It is moving at a speed and a rate and a hertz that we can't see. And that's good, because if we could, then this reality wouldn't really come together and hold itself together. So
right. It's good that we don't see it, because all around you, there's all sorts of stuff going on that is vibrating at a place where you cannot see it or feel it. Some people have better understanding and feeling, so they get vibes differently than other people. So some people, the empaths, people who are mediums, they feel things that other people, and see things that other people don't see. But the spectrum is so wide that even they don't go very far enough.
Right. And on the far right of the slide, we just have to show you what it does to you on a molecular water level. Dr. Emoto did this science experiment for it wasn't just this sort of little home sort of science experiment. It was a very clinical experiment where he had a group of people sit in one room and meditate and say words to water in another room. And then he froze that water and saw what the crystallization of that water was. And you can imagine joy, love, peace, which one of the crystals we see is this beautiful, beautiful water, frozen ice crystal, right? And then on the bottom, which is shame and guilt, I hate you, I'm shameful, is this muddied sort of crystallization that never happened. It literally just looks like a pile of frozen just muck. So, so just think about, this is what the Great Resignation is about. People are opting out from the jobs that are in the feelings and the emotions that are literally killing them from the inside out.
Yes.
Right. And more in a science perspective is specifically what quantum physics is proving. It's allowing us to have a more scientific discussion about this rather than just a faith and religion based one.
Right.
Which is great, right? Because it's
fabulous.
It's more neutral this way. And
yeah,
you call it whatever you want to call it. This is universal law of vibration, is a universal law that is on both sides of the veil, meaning when you're in the three-dimensional reality, which we're talking about right now as we're in it, or you're on the other side as an infinite being where you're in space-time versus time-space that Einstein discussed.
Yes. So, Einstein, when you look at all these theoretical physicists and start reading their stuff, I mean, Einstein in theory was a theoretical physicist because he predicted things that other physicists didn't grasp yet. When you look back at all those people and their life and their writings, they all come down to the same thing, which is, oh my goodness, we are infinite. We are creatures of energy. Call it God, call it what you want, but this is real. They all come down to that.
Well, so really quickly, and we'll jump back into these points, but you said, about being infinite, the new Nobel Prize for the physicists is the entanglement, right, of the two particles, right? So meaning, just think about it. So you take a sheet of paper and you rip it in half, right? And you were to take one piece of paper all the way to another room, or even burn it, just destroy it, and you still have that other side of the piece of paper. It's still connected to it, right? You may not be able to see it, but in an energetic level, they're still connected, like they're one, or they were connected, or they interact, which means a couple things, right? We're all connected on an energetic level, like infinitely, forever, right? Which
forever
is
and ever and ever.
Forever and ever, right? If for those people that are afraid of shaking hands with other people, I hate to tell them, they are way more closer to the people that they meet than they've ever realized, right? So the other part is, from an infinite perspective, this was a realization I had on this research. And I knew this was true, but it's funny to see the research show this. So a loved one passing away, you can imagine you y'all are connected, right? And you're part of this entanglement, right? The other person passes away, but they're still connecting to you. But so the thing is, you may be on this side of the veil and you're like, okay, I'm attached to something that I can't see it on the other side, but if there's a string here to attach to the other person on an energetic level, it's going into nowhere. Well, no, it's not going into nowhere. It's just going to the other side of the veil. Yeah. And so you're still connected to loved ones that way. So and they're still connected to you. It's just that this veil of forgetfulness and this frequency that we vibrate in this reality is like, I don't know how to explain it. It's just like, it's this thing I can't see, but I see a string going to nowhere and it moves around when that person necessarily moves. So I know it's to attach to them, but they're there. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, Denise?
Well, you look at like, somebody give me proof of life after death. Okay, there's tons of proof out there.
Yes.
If you really want it,
there's a lot.
There is a lot of proof out there.
And I recommend looking at going to a University of Virginia has a whole department in school based on near-death experiences and past lives and consciousness, which there's a lot of really good research there.
Yeah, and there's some cool things on Netflix too. If
Definitely.
And if you want to listen to my stories, I got several of them about connecting in that fashion.
Yes.
And I have been, I've been going to mediums for a while now, even before my husband died. But one of the things that they always mention to me is that there are ancestors, and Native American Indians talk about ancestors a lot, don't they? There are ancestors even working on your behalf. So this continuum, this thread, this connection goes not just in the moment, but it goes back in time.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. It goes back and forward in time, and it never stops. It's totally infinite in a time loop because it's all happening at the same time.
At the same time.
Wow.
And what is super interesting, which I cannot wrap my head around, but what is super interesting is, okay, I'm somebody's ancestor. So am I influencing someone who is not born yet, but they're born someplace else? Okay, my mind is blown right now, but it is absolutely true.
Well,
if you believe the back half, which I do, because I have all sorts of confirmation of that, and then you think about the front half, and then it's like, wow, man.
This is a topic we should talk about, Denise. Not on this show. If we have some time at the end, we can break it up and cover this topic. But you're right. I mean, it's fascinating, and I've had a couple requests for us to discuss near-death experiences, past lives, that kind of idea. But I'll and before we go back to growing with this understanding, like in trying to grow a business and create communities. Every one of your customers or on transaction, they are like soul partners in this. You just think about that, right? Your customers, everybody you interact with is a reflection on two things: either your soul planning, your soul tribe type of level, or your thoughts and your beliefs, and you're attracting those frequencies. So, and eventually we've all met everybody who's met everybody just about, which is incredibly exciting. So
it's incredibly cool. And when you meet somebody and you go, oh, I feel like I've known you my whole life. Yes, you have.
Yes, you have. Well, and
your energy life, yes, you have.
Yep. Okay, cool. So let's jump back in, because I think this is a really exciting and important thing. So get an idea on the Great Resignation. There is a Great Awakening. People are understanding this. We're not the only ones talking about this. We may be really focusing it on a business perspective because we feel like this is a great place where it needs to be applied, and it is going to really be the mechanism that frees all of us through money, basically, and our passions coming together, which is part of features of this reality that we're in. So that's we talk about point one, which is market followers paradox, and then we talk about the Great Resignation, which is really just law of vibration and awakening of consciousness, and people knowing what is conscious or unconscious now. People are seeing through the lies. People are seeing through this. So that's another important point. And then finally, which is leading to the evolution of capitalism. We've talked about this previously, but basically we're moving from capitalism 1.0, which is authoritarian, from really most of where we are today is capitalism 2.0, which is shareholder based. Most of Wall Street, publicly traded companies definitely operate in this model. And now capitalism 3.0, which is karmic, which is based on understanding these universal truths and applying them to add purpose and value to everyone.
Yeah. And there's a 2.5 here, which is conscious capitalism, which has got a lot of traction right now. And people are talking about conscious capitalism and or stakeholder capitalism.
Yep.
Those two things are kind of the same. in the sense that stakeholder capitalism is the acknowledgement that everybody who is in an ecosystem, like the people who work for a company, the people who partner with a company, the places that a company does business with, all have a share in the benefits of the company, as opposed to keeping the benefits of the company at the shareholder. I own a piece, therefore I'm the only one that gets to benefit. You know, as an employee, you should benefit too somehow. What's the benefit to everybody?
Yeah, and a 2.5 is a great way saying stakeholder / conscious capitalism, because they're not. It's a safe way to sort of get at what we're talking about, but you're missing the underlying purpose and reason, because a lot of even stakeholder capitalists and conscious capitalists wouldn't do what they're doing, because we're also seeing a ton of greenwashing happening. And I want to share an example of a greenwashing incident that I experienced.
Do it.
We talk to investors all the time, and me being of my last name and such, family being of Hispanic origin, I qualify as a minority business enterprise, which is fine. And I think minority business enterprises and inclusion diversity is all great. However, that's still a stakeholder capitalism level, because what we're talking about, if we're operating in a karmic level of consciousness, you wouldn't need to focus on this stuff, because it would naturally just happen as a byproduct. The things would just solve itself. So I'm talking to a private equity company that works with family offices, and they were interested in helping us because they invest in minority business enterprises, which is fabulous. I think that we need to, capitalism is a great tool. It's been the most effective tool, raising people out of poverty and giving people abundance. And it's great. So we're talking, and us being a minority business enterprise, started discussing about what we're doing in, say, crypto and other spaces. And the person who I was talking to was like, yeah, that's not enough. That business model is not enough. It's only enough if you're created a barrier of entry through your minority business status, meaning you have somebody donate machines to you for free because you're minority, or you've locked in all the contracts because of your minority status. We don't invest in minority businesses. We only invest when they've exploited the set asides given to them as a strategic business advantage. And for me, that's a great example of greenwashing, because if you were true to supporting and growing minority business enterprises, which is their whole business model, is growing minority business enterprises, investing in a minority business enterprise should be enough. That alone should be enough.
Yes.
And I'm not trying to place judgment on them or anything, but I'm just using as an example of how people in 2.5 don't really get it. They don't really get it. It's still trying to make money, and they're using these excuses or these purposes to get an advantage over everybody else. And aren't we doing the same thing that non-minority businesses were doing to us? Isn't it the same? And this gets to the point of the polarization of being, you can't be anti-war and pro-peace at the same time, because if you're anti-war, you're pro-war.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
You have to be pro something.
The universe doesn't know the anti or the pro. It just knows war. And the fact that you're focusing on it expands it. And I'll get into this a little bit with the NFL, because it's kind of it's almost laughable if you understand consciousness. The NFL clearly does not, and all the issues that they have. I love the NFL, but it is not a karmic capitalist run business. It is definitely authoritarian, I would argue.
You think?
Yeah, exactly. So they have this great, right now, intercept cancer, right? It's all over the place. Intercept cancer, intercept cancer, intercept cancer. If they really understood what they were saying, they're actually telling everybody to catch cancer. Because intercepting cancer is the same as saying, go catch cancer. You would want to be pro health, reduce stress, not even reduce stress, be happy, be abundant. Talking about the stuff we're talking about is that's how you cure cancer in the long run, because epigenetics, we know that a lot of cases, a lot of cancer, not all, but a lot of cancer is self-inflicted through stress and other thoughts and ideas.
Right.
So,
Well,
so
it's
you
an
create it yourself.
accelerator, certainly.
Yeah, definitely. Either way, it's not good
Yeah.
for you. So, and we saw
Right.
what it did to water. Think about what it's doing to your body and physiology. So I just mean that there's a lack of awareness completely. And I would argue that, unfortunately, the woke culture is in 2.5. They don't understand karmic, because a lot of the things they say wouldn't be coming out of their mouths if they understood this stuff, right?
Well, the interesting part, and prior to us getting together here, it's like I never thought of it that way. I never thought that the universe did not recognize a word. And I do believe that words are important. I mean,
definitely. Yes.
Let's just go back and say prayer. I mean, people say you should pray out loud, right? Because your thoughts inside your head don't necessarily, you got a whole bunch of junk in your head. It's a muddle in your head. But if you say it out loud, you're saying an intention. And the intention that you're saying, let's call it a prayer, is a manifestation.
Yes.
And when you say the universe doesn't recognize the ims, the parts of a word that flip it, I'm like, oh, how interesting is that? Because what you're doing is you're sending out a dual signal then.
Yep.
And it's like, oh my God, you're absolutely right. The don't stuff doesn't work.
Well, because you're still saying cancer. You're still manifesting cancer in the process, right? So you're creating like hunger. Like you're creating hunger's existence by saying it, right? So anti isn't enough to the strength, the keyword, right? So that is just, and there's more out there on that, and there's experts on this, but writing it, you're absolutely right, Denise. Writing down, just think about how powerful the Bible is and was. The Constitution, the words, and writing down, and writing it down is a major step in manifesting anything, because it becomes real. It's the first step, going from your mind into your words. You can speak it and people may listen and hear it, but videos is another way. It's like almost like an audio way of writing it down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or, recording this, but also writing it down and physically doing that, and manifesting and doing scripts in your manifestation is a very important piece of this. Right. We don't talk about it. We haven't really talked about it yet, but that is an incredible point. And Denise, and you and I talked about it. One of the reasons why we wanted to do this show was because every time we do this, it creates a vibration. That asset creates its own vibratory sort of vibration at this higher level, which makes it more and more real.
Mm-hmm.
We're changing reality here, right?
And the fact that you all are listening to it is part of the compounding. And if you're sharing it, that's part of the compounding. I just going back like 2 minutes here, I love books that parse out something. Let's just say the Bible as an example. It's like the Bible has so many interpretations.
Yeah.
It is so many interpretations over time. So what were the original words that were said, and how do they translate? Because the translation of the words from, whatever language, Hebrew, that it was saying is very different than what the current interpretations are. Like maybe even like totally a 180. And so when you start looking at that, and you start looking at the time and the interpretation of the word and the meaning of the word at the time the word was written, not translated, and it matters. It changes everything.
Well, So that's why you always know higher level consciousness art and writing and songs when they can actually evolve with the times and be as relevant today as they were 100 years ago. And it's incredible. And I mean, you just think about even the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. I mean,
Yes.
wow, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Big
think
deal.
about that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just timeless, right? Timeless.
Yes, but the words and the intent are being misconstrued
Right.
now.
Right.
So
True.
it's like, all right, everybody stop. Can we reevaluate some of this stuff? Because
Well,
I kind of don't think that was the intent at the time.
right. Well, and when we go back to what we're talking about in the sort of consciousness itself, if we looked at the Constitution and looked at consciousness and the interpretation of that, and if everybody agreed to it, the consciousness and we talk about, the Great Resignation, but more or less the map of consciousness here, then it allows us to communicate at a level of vibration that understands, right?
That is universal, that we
Yeah.
all can agree upon, because it is stripped down
Right.
of time, and it's stripped to energy and intent.
And everybody knows what feels right too. That's the thing. Like, you feel, when you feel good, when you feel bad. You don't need to put words to it. It's actually, that's when we struggle to put words to our feelings, right?
Right.
So
when you're vibing, you can't explain it. And when you're in love, it's like everybody's been trying to explain what that is, and nobody has gotten that right yet.
So we talked about 3 points. We talked about, obviously, how things are evolving, consciousness, market followers paradox, all of that good stuff. So the world is evolving, and so does our approach to growth. I mean, when we map, and these are directional, when we start to map companies to the map of consciousness, we looked at it in 2 areas. We looked at it from how they're projecting themselves in the messaging and the branding, all of that, what we see externally. And if it's at a higher vibration versus lower, really combined on average with how they are internally managed, meaning their internal culture. So you can have a company like Disney, which is like, oh, the happiest place on earth, when internally it is one of the most toxic work environments in all Fortune 500 companies. Right?
Everybody knows.
I don't put them on here, but they're somewhere neutrality. I would probably put them even further down because their culture is so bad. And you can see it with the pricing. Their whole pricing model right now is let's just keep pricing people out, and they're going to pay it. They're going to keep showing up. They're going to pay it. We're going to keep raising prices. And they're public about that. And it's sad. It's very sad.
It's very sad. And Disney is a fabulous example of that. And it's the difference between outward and inward culture and marketing.
Mm-hmm.
We marketers are pretty powerful people, aren't we? We are the ones that make people believe in things that are not true. Oh, yes. Goodness. What if marketers were actually honest about what they project? I mean, Disney is a fabulous example. Coke's not a bad example too, because Coke is all about happiness. They haven't changed their brand essence forever. It's all about happiness. But Coke's kind of a tough business internally too. Yes. I know, Costco and Sam's Club could be on this list. And for those of you just listening, we're taking the cone, much like when we talk about archetypes and what companies align with certain archetypes. We have our cone here, and we're listing companies on the side of the cone that ladder up to what kind of companies are true. They're true on the inside and true on the outside.
Right. So we took the map of consciousness from Dr. David Hawkins, and we plotted all of the some example brands. So we have here Coca-Cola at a neutrality. We have Nike and NFL in a pride perspective, right? Because if you think about what they do, it's really about pride. It's courage. There's some courage there. But really, in a cultural perspective, that's where it really ends, honestly. We got Dior and other beauty brands, which are really about desiring a future state of yourself,
Yeah.
really playing on that. And we'll get back into these. I just want to give the quick overview. And we got new CNN, which is definitely in a fear and grief level. And we have companies like
Fox, excuse me.
And Fox, yeah, Fox. I just put
there.
CNN. You know, I put CNN because CNN is supposed to be neutral.
Right? Oh, yeah, they're supposed to be the neutral one.
They're supposed to be the neutral good guys of all of them, independent, and they're really just as bad as Fox or MSNBC, to be honest. So just the two different flavors of the same fear, just using your belief system to scare you even more against the other people, right? So they're dividing people all the time. And then companies like Merck, right? And I'm talking about big pharma in general. I mean, so Merck has posted, has advertisings around shingles, right? Well, what they're telling you is you're going to get shingles. You better take this medicine. Did you know it's highly probable you're not going to get shingles? But now they're putting it in, they're manifesting it into your reality and making you worry about it. So they're actually hurting you by that advertisement itself and actually manipulating your matrix reality and trying to put you in a cage to make you worry and buy more of their products. And then last but not least, for sure, are both political parties. I think all political parties, but especially both Republicans and Democrats. And so, I think, Denise and I are at different levels of the spectrum, depending on what day at least for me, what day you ask me or other things.
True.
I'm very neutral on this. I try to be above it, and so is Denise, by the way.
But everybody knows where I'm coming from.
Yeah, Denise is more on the liberal side than say myself, right? So
right, but look how we were raised. I mean,
sure.
We're coming from the influences of a whole life here,
right?
Which brings us back to culture and its influence and how culture, right and wrong, works. Yeah. And I was going to say Costco's and Sam's Club are a great example of this, because Sam's Club is lower on the scale and Costco is way higher on the scale. If you look at their relative pricing, if you look at how much they support employees, Sam's Club is a revolving door of employees, and the Costco people are, they're setting records for people wanting to stay there. Right. So, and they have better snacks.
Right. Right. And these are the sort of public where we see they're promoting their advertising. We're going into the election season, and neither one of them of the political parties are promoting anything from a love, joy, and peace, are they? Right. It's all about divide, fear, scare you about the other people. And here's the funny part is they understand this.
Oh, hell
and this is what makes it even worse, right? Because now they're doing it consciously. They understand consciousness in this map of consciousness. Because this isn't map of consciousness. I think Dr. David Hawkins, I think he presented this in the 70s or 80s. So this is not necessarily new. Just applying it is new, like this use case for it is new. But they are using these. Banking is another one. Obviously, banking is big on creating fear, pride, courage. But the reality is a lot of it is traps. They're trapping people and using this against them.
Okay, I'm not proud of this, but I learned a lot when I did it. So back in the day, a while back, I used Forrester research for a financial institution who was trying to sell. Well, they weren't one institution. They were the association above the institution. So this all trickled down to a lot of different, financial companies. But they were trying to sell insurance if you lost your job and you were taking out a loan. Okay, so if you lost your job, you could get this insurance, and then it would pay your payments, during that loss. Okay, and it would be an extra $1 a month there, $5 a month, or whatever. I don't even know.
Right.
What I did with the Forrester research is I divided what was maybe 20 different categories that these kinds of models give marketers, and it's like everybody goes to suburban elites and suburban strugglers and all that sort of stuff, and they were able to give me what they think about money. And there were two groups, and one group, and this was pretty close to the recession, the 2008, 2009 recession. One group was, I am in control of my money, and it's not my fault that we're in a problem. And the other group was, I am not in control of my money, and I need help. Okay, I wrote scripts for both groups, and I wrote different questions that the person who was selling this, who was not a teller, but a bank person who's selling a loan, could ask to figure out, is this a person in control and kind of a hater of the people that aren't in control? And it's like, it's not my fault people, or are these people in, I'll take anything you want because I'm not in control and I don't want to do something stupid? That's an example of how manipulation happens in marketing. And that's an example of using fear, using anger, using guilt to sell products. I'm not proud of it, but I know how to do it. But I'm not proud of it.
Well, in all fairness, Denise, this is how we were taught as marketers on what success was, right? And I definitely have done it myself.
We've all done it.
I mean, it's part, and it's just about being aware of it now, and how do we level up to a higher frequency and vibration. And we have Patagonia towards the top here as an example, and they really have. They're twice as profitable as their competitors, such as a North Face or Columbia.
Yep.
They're with the same number of people, and I'm sure they have a market. So here's the other part I wanted to talk about. We'll talk about market invention here. And most of these companies are market inventors in their own way. But market invention as a methodology is neutral, right? You can use it for good or evil, so to speak. And the companies that are using it have used it successfully. So now imagine using it, like if you're Nike and using it with consciousness, how far and how much bigger and how much more revenue and how much more profitable can you really be? So much more, because remember, we talked about this. It's not only just 10 times stronger, say a love versus courage or neutrality. And remember, in neutrality, you're breaking even on a frequency level. So anything below it, you're actually in a contraction, destruction level from a matter perspective.
Yeah.
So anything above it is in creation, right?
Yeah. And when we talk about market invention, that's something that Adam has codified as an example of how to market in a conscious manner, or not a conscious manner. But so that's what he's talking about, because I don't think we define market invention. Also, with regard to Nike, Phil Knight right now is pissing a lot of people off, because they thought, now Phil Knight started Nike. He's now chairman of the board. Maybe he doesn't really have anything to do with it, but he's like a mega
Uncle Phil. Yeah.
Uncle Phil. So Uncle Phil is actually throwing a lot of money into an election there that is kind of, they have three candidates, a Republican, a Democrat, and then someone who came out as an independent. And he's pushing this independent because he's basically saying, I don't like the Democrat, but he's getting a lot of people pissed off because the independent is really just a variation of the Republican, who is just kind of, nasty and has that stank on it. Mm-hmm. But it's like, well, the mission, vision, values of Nike is not showing up in the mission, vision, values of what Phil Knight is doing. And it's causing tremendous cognitive dissonance for for the brand.
Well, and that's fascinating because you talk about the two-party system and just in general, and made me realize that one of the key trends I should add to this is decentralization. And
Yeah.
meaning that, you have all this consolidated power based on force. Previously, they used force to consolidate this power, or their large companies. And now we're seeing fragmentation of that, decentralization, micro economies, micro communities. You're seeing that you're seeing independents actually potentially win now, right? So that's fascinating. So let's keep going, because that's a great example. So let's talk back. So how do you grow in this consciousness-based economy? I think we need to define what a market is really quickly here.
Yes.
And I think what we define it really as, and chime in here, but as I always say, it's a group of individuals coming together to solve a shared pain or hope. Somebody said hope. That was good. I like it. But shared pain is most what people do and entrepreneurs think of: a shared pain, challenge, or a shared hope based on a shared belief. And as marketers, our role is not to promote and get this group to get the most amount, maximize share of wallet, or and maximize that and try to create transactions and lots of them. It's really being the center of organizing these communities, these markets.
Now, I mean, community, nobody talked about community 30 years ago, 20 years ago. The concept of community really came with the internet, even, because people were suddenly exposed to choice. You could choose this, you could choose this, so the idea of community, I would argue, is relatively new in marketing terms.
Yep.
So that makes this shared belief thing way more powerful now than it frankly would have been 80 years ago, because communities were there. They were small. They're
fragmented, right?
And it was very fragmented. But now communities can be worldwide.
Yeah. Now we have the technology to bring communities together that all over the world that we just didn't have before, right?
Right.
And that's not going to change, right? So what does a mature market look like then? Usually it's the market leader. You got media, investors, customers, you have competitors, associations, government partners. The point is any large mature market, it has an established leader, and everybody is within that sort of ecosystem or value chain around that. Now, a market is not an industry, and an industry is not a market. And I'll explain that. An industry can have multiple markets within it, right? Think about the automotive industry. We really look at the industry not as a category, like automotive is a category, but thinking about it is like there's a market of people that buy Teslas because they're innovators, right? And Tesla is not about ESG. It is about innovation and driving a spaceship, so to speak, right?
Adam has a Tesla.
I have a Tesla, by the way. But I mean, the byproduct is ESG. Sure, that's great, environmental sustainability and governance. But it's not the purpose. Buying a Jeep. I love Jeeps. Buying a Jeep. You're not buying a Jeep.
I have a Jeep.
So I'll ask you this. So you're not buying a Jeep because it's an SUV. You're buying it because there's a part of you that loves Americana and a part of you that loves adventure and the idea of freedom and openness. And
because it's badass.
Yeah, because it is badass. But that badass is an expression of those beliefs, right?
Right. And not all Jeeps are badass.
That's true. I'm really disappointed where they've gone with some of these other brands.
Yeah. Man, I got an old one.
Oh man.
So it was before they sold out.
Well, they're trying to be an auto manufacturer, a generic industry, and trying to get more people. And that they're realizing is they're trying to get people from other market belief systems, and they're never going to expand. So an industry can have multiple markets, and a market can have multiple industries in it, because a market is around a belief system. So like Denise may, her belief system is, there's a lot of belief systems, right? I mean, it's not a simple one belief, right? We're very complex beings with very complex beliefs. But if I'm into Americana, and that's like one of my primary beliefs, I got to buy American, I got this and this and this, then I'm probably going to buy something like a Ford truck or a Ford, maybe Jeep falls into that, some other stuff. Maybe I drink Budweiser, but you're not going to sell me necessarily Modelo.
I knew you were going to say Modelo.
Like we just talked about it, right? But like you because I'm Budweiser, I'm Americana, red, white, and blue. Let's do it. And by the way, I'm big belief in Americana, but I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm also more of a global citizen than I am necessarily just the US one.
Adam really likes like the Americana stuff, like the Maine kind of vibe.
Yeah. But that's a whole other thing, right? So that's like a New England version. So there's variations of this stuff, right?
Yeah, it's badge value. You know, what is the badge value of something? And that's an old idea. It's not a new.
Yeah, right, exactly. This isn't new stuff. It's like just kind of remembering it and understanding it. We got lost in the way, right?
Yes, and putting it in the context of today and tomorrow.
And so why does everybody, when they're trying to grow in the market leaders market, always become the follower? Because the market reflects the leaders' belief systems. If they invented the market, they reflect the system, and it's around the shared pain or belief, right? And just we'll start off with people. So their employees eventually leave. Some employees leave. I'm sorry, even if you're doing this the best, people they have their life paths. Life paths trump career paths. Okay,
right. And also businesses come and go. So
totally.
Just because a business didn't last 50 years doesn't mean that wasn't bad. They made decisions. So if you think about the people are moving around, then they're bringing their training with them. They're bringing their culture with them outside of your culture. They're bringing their processes with them, their products, the words they use, the language. If you're in an industry and you're using words based on that industry, you got to ask yourself who invented that term. And it's usually not the media. It is the market leader planting the seed to invent the market around this, right? Right. And the people who left that leader take their values and what they learned with them.
Exactly.
Influence.
Exactly. So when you take an industry analyst call and tell you this is where you need to lead your industry, know that all they're doing is telling you where the market leader and what they're doing today, because that's their data points. And I would argue, I don't think I've ever seen an industry expert predict where an industry is going from a transformational perspective.
100%. They all look backwards. 100%.
They'll tell you what best practice is, and best practice is table stakes in this area. But here's the good thing: the market leaders usually cause the pain too. So you might be solving what the market leader is creating, right? Think about how many issues the market leaders in these industries have created for our lives today, whether it's a bad customer experience or a bad product or just price gouging, right?
Right. Well, they're also leveraging pain to sell their products, which are a solution, because that's kind of the first graders classic marketing. It's like, oh, you have this pain, we have a solution for the pain. Often the market leaders are the ones that fuel the pain so they can have a solution to the pain. Because if they have a solution and they're a market leader, they just talk about that, and all the other followers talk about it. And like McDonald's, they rise to the top.
And all the influencers and media, especially the media, well, first they're getting paid based on these industry leaders, right? Their ads.
Yeah. And
second, they are getting their information in the trends from the leaders, right? So of course the leaders are going to, if they're smart, they're going to keep directing it the way they win, right? So you can change that though. And now that you know that exists, now you can do something about it.
Yes.
So let's try this. Instead of reinforcing legacy market leaders and their belief system, let's lead by inventing new markets with new beliefs. And these beliefs don't need to be these massive save the world beliefs, okay? They can be as simple as using Velcro to tie your shoe rather than a shoelace, okay? So let's not go crazy here and make it think that it needs to be this big thing. And it can be a small thing. It can be a regional thing. It doesn't need to be this massive thing. Go ahead.
I think, for instance, with a current example, Skechers,
Hmm.
is doing a fabulous job of creating a new market. Their shoes have, and the new market is for people who want a supportive, comfortable shoe. It probably skews old. They buy an expensive shoe. So their shoes right now have many variations, but super big arch supports. I like those.
Mm-hmm.
And they have shoes that they're marketing to busy moms. But frankly, the market also extends to people who can't bend over and tie their shoes that you can just slip on that look like, they don't fold over. You don't have to, you just slip them on while you're standing up holding a baby. Fabulous example of a legacy manufacturer that frankly got eclipsed by a lot of other shoes back in the day. And were also known as, oh, that Skechers is not a cool brand, have made a pivot to own a different kind of category. And they're also saying, you can golf in these shoes all day long. Oh my God.
Yeah, but you're right. But Denise, right? You said a new category, but not a product category. We're talking about a market category. Like, in the market is the belief system that's shifting, because now these individuals are like, hey, can I do this when I play golf? Can I take this when, because they're taking this belief system into other aspects of their human experience, right?
And it's about comfort.
Yep.
And it's about functionality. And it's a discard of kind of trend and silly shoes, because there's plenty of silly shoes out there, and there's plenty of shoes that are not quality out there.
Yes.
But it's like at a certain age you grow up and that's the shoe you want, because that is a value that you have. It's like, I'm tired of all that. This is the shoe I'm going to wear.
Yeah, it's right. And if you're not a fan of Skechers, it's okay, but that's your belief system and not somebody who's buying Skechers, and it's all good.
They're a very nice shoe, by the way.
So then we talked about some market invention stuff. So if we're inventing markets, like, what is market invention? And we'll talk about this because this is like its own separate topic. And for those who really want to dig into market invention, we're going to be having our first live, call it show, webinar, whatever we want to call it, next week. Deciding on the day, I'll let everybody know, but we'll get into more deeper detail on how you do this. But at a high level, there's 4 stages of maturity for any market, and it's the opportunity stage is first, then it's the invention strategy is second, the third is make the market, and the fourth is lead the market. And in the process, this is how you break the market follower paradox, because what you do is you identify the opportunity up front, and the opportunity could be based on the pain. The legacy market might be creating it or not addressing it at all. Then we move, which is pretty basic. Anybody who's an entrepreneur will say, oh yeah, that's just like any starting a new business, you should do that. Sure, great, agreed. A lot of people don't do that like that, though. They just pick something, they follow or pick something because they saw somebody making money off of it.
Yeah, that's pretty common.
And then you have the invention strategy, which is really, what does it look like? This is like writing it down, right? This is like putting it into words and starting the manifestation of it, right? And the investment strategy is more than just a business plan and what it is. Actually defining the market invention itself, naming the market, because we need words, and people need, in the language this is where the language comes in, right, Denise?
Mm-hmm. Language is super important. It's super important. And we talked about
like the lexicon, right?
A certain client that we have. Yeah, we're a business. We do this. But we talked about words, and we actually were working on nomenclature and inventing words that defined our invention this morning. And those words will carry through. Those words will become infrastructure for understanding. And those words themselves are metaphors for context. So super important.
Yeah. And it's the language. I mean, your sales team, everything. I mean, I think it's the lexicon, and not only in words, but the visual lexicon. So like a
Yeah.
lot of people will discount creatives being like, oh, when I need you, I need to do an ad. But think about what we've been saying. If you really want to manifest something, you need to have other people see it and feel it. And this is why I value creative so much. And I feel like the creative
Absolutely.
profession, right, has just been given away.
It's been
And
given away and knocked down and made mediocre, and everybody thinks they can do it because they have an iPhone and because a
they
lot
have
of
Canva.
yeah, and then they have Canva, and boy, it's a visual vocabulary that you're building that
Mhm.
is proprietary to you,
And,
and
and
that's not done with Canva.
and if anybody is working with any creative professionals that or any marketers that really frankly don't understand this, they're literally trying to fly a plane without understanding gravity. And I've said this a lot about a lot of things when somebody, but if you don't understand the physics of it, how can you actually understand really how to be the best at it? And so
Right.
that's the investment strategy. And then we get into make the market. And for many people, this is activation. It's like, but it isn't activating like, here's my brand promise. This is me. And even a shared purpose, great purpose. But this is about recruiting and empowering a group of people to come together. You're trying to recruit a fragmented group of people around this shared vision.
Mhm.
And if you've done it right, yeah, you have a product and service to help them get to that shared vision, and you're creating an ecosystem, a value chain or supply chain of other partners to help this. Competitors are part of that, but there's a key difference. You don't really look at competitors as competitors. You look at them as collaborators and trying to build this thing so everybody grows and wins, right?
Yes, because everybody, okay, think back 2.5,
Mhm.
uh, stakeholder versus shareholder capitalism, and its difference is it's opposite stakeholder capitalism. Everybody is a stakeholder. Okay, what happens after that? Well, even your competitors benefit by what you're doing.
Right.
That's what happens after that. That's Miracle on 48th Street or 49th Street or whatever the Santa Claus movie was back in the day. That's actually bringing positivity. Macy's, Gimbals. It's if you don't know that story, it's kind of classic, but
Yep.
probably people don't even know what Macy's and Gimbals are anymore. But um, it's raising all boats.
Yes. And that's the sustainability of this, because now you've really manifested a market that is an ecosystem that everybody is getting wealthier and helping each other do things. And that is the most sustainable thing, because now everybody is promoting it and growing it in the vision together. And that is coming from a higher vibration, honestly.
Yep.
And so then, when we get past that point, I'll talk about, we get into the lead the market. That's when it's established, and you've got to keep it forward and moving forward with it, right? What's the next version? What is the next iteration? And a lot of people, and it's defending it in ways too, right? Because now there's going to be people trying to attack it or knock it down. And if it is the closest thing to truth and you keep trying to pursue truth, anybody that's trying to knock it down is somebody that doesn't understand consciousness, because they would understand how to collaborate, and you would help them because you understand that you both win. But obviously that doesn't happen in a lot of industries today, most industries, but that's changing. So timeline on this, Denise, we talk about this, right? It's either if you have a lot of money, great, we can speed things up.
Yeah.
But the reality is, it really comes down to if you're already a known entity or not. And that can
Yeah.
help you or hurt you either way, right? Because if you're
Yeah.
typecasted, if you're, say a gas company that has a notoriously bad problem with,
The environment.
disasters. What was that?
Yeah, go ahead. We know
Yeah,
which one you're talking about.
disasters, then suddenly becoming beyond it and green is really hard pill to swallow, right?
Mhm.
It-
Yeah,
it's
you're
like,
coming from a something less than zero, and you have to overcome
yeah,
a legacy uh, brand impression, which
right.
is hard to do.
It's like being typecasted in Hollywood. If you've always been the villain, it's really hard to be the hero, right? Because everybody's
Yep.
going to see you as the villain, right?
Yeah, because you already have an archetype. You
Yep.
are this, you know.
It, so, but the good thing is being well known can speed things up because you already have the channel of communication, and now you're just everybody's paying attention. It's like if you know Apple's got some incredible people, incredible marketers, but it is far easy to promote for Apple and get awareness of a new product on Apple because you already have your audience, you already have a market, you have a group of people. So when you put anything out in the news, just like Nike, an advertisement in Nike, everybody's watching it, right? So you still got to make it good because if everybody's watching it, you're going to get, everybody sees it. You can't hide. However, you can accelerate this stuff so fast. But when you're an unknown and you're just building it from scratch, it can take longer.
Yeah.
But the good news is it's sustainable, and you're there for decades. Decades, not this sort of flash in the pan, sort of smash and grab type of marketing that we see today.
There's short term and long term. Frankly, Market Invention is about going all in on creating a new ecosystem, and that is long term.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, you play a short term game.
Yes.
Now, and there is an inverse relationship between time and money in the sense that if you have a lot of time, you don't need as much money. But if you don't have a lot of time, you need more money to do anything. So that's why if you are looking at YouTube, you see the chart, the make the market is like 9 months to 5 years. It's like, what? That's not the answer most people want to hear when they say, how long will this take? Well, how much money you got is not an insulting question, because it is, you got to know it in order to say how long it will take. The more money you have, the more we can accelerate the process. The less money you have, the more it's going to take more time.
And again, when you do this, it doesn't have to be, I got to save the world, so to speak, be a global superpower. You can do this on a very micro regional level.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do it for a very niche thing in a small community of 1,000 people. Now, your size will be determined on the amount of people you reach, of course, but that's okay. And I think, we get all these companies that are overvalued right now with, just when you look at the intrinsic value sort of investor and the idea of intrinsic value from an investment perspective. And you look at Benjamin Graham and Warren Buffett and the rest that believe in the value investor. They talk about, barriers of entry. Are they sustainable models? Meaning, can competitors come in and take their customers very easily?
Right.
But they just look at, right? They look at infrastructure or like being minority business enterprise or any of that. And that to me is not intrinsic value. Intrinsic value is, do you have a community that's loyal to you in a market? And do you represent a core belief system that isn't going away tomorrow? Whoever's doing that is the value-based stock that you want to go out and find and purchase, right? Because they are sustained and they will last through any recession, any time.
Exactly.
So becoming a thought.
We're getting close to time.
Yes, we are. We might go a little bit over, but that's okay. Because for those who are hanging with us and for those who can't have to hop off, you can watch the rest of the recorded. So basic bottom line, if you don't think about the phases, here's some elements that you need regardless. Like these are some core elements that you need, and everybody can debate on these and the variations of this, but you do have to have a point of view. You do have to have a belief system. You have to have a language. You do need something to deliver on this, a product or service. You need results because people need to know it works. When you're expanding your market to more people, you're going to get, you look at the innovation cycle. it's a big bell curve. The innovators being in the front, early adopters next, early majority, late majority at the top of the bell curve, and then laggards at the end. The laggards are always the people that will keep buying a flip phone until they literally can't get one anymore, and they have to buy a smartphone. The innovators are the ones that are waiting in line at Apple to get the next iPhone, right? So, and each one of them compounds on the other group, right? So the innovators get the early adopters to buy, the early adopters get the early majority get the late majority, and so on. And the laggards don't ever try to market to them or sell to them because they're just never going to be in your market. And that, even in your belief system, people are different levels of their adoption cycle, right? So they may even believe in what you're doing, but they may be more risk adverse to be the first one to try it. So you just got to put that in context, and that's why you need results. And of course, story is important.
Everything that humans understand is a story. Everything. Stories have beginnings, middles, ends. Stories have arcs of understanding that are all beats in the narrative. And you need a story for someone to actually be able to process what you're trying to tell them. So I'm just like going, hey, love you story, because that's part of what we do. It's like, what is the story and the understanding that has to happen? And we create a lot of stories, but it sure is helpful for you to have one in here.
Yeah. So a story is that emotional tie to the market and the belief. And this is how you get people even that are on the fence to bring in, right? And
subconscious, 85% subconscious, 15% rational. That's the
for everything, right, Denise? That's everything, right? If you're B2B or B2C, it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. The 15% is a justification of the 85%. Totally. So the story matters, and the connection to the story matters. And there's a whole lot of tactics to do that, to go subconscious, to make the beats of the story imprint. But that's another day.
Yes. Well, we'll get into that. If for others who want to follow us on our other channels, we'll start getting into that on the Merit channel and actually teach people how to do this. And then finally, the activation, which an activation isn't us necessarily activating. At first, yes, meaning the market inventor or the company that's trying to invent a market. It's really about empowerment and having others, like word of mouth, like giving viral, the idea of viral video. Well, the reason why viral videos, most of them work, is because they do all of these things, and there's a bit of a call to action to share. It's worth sharing with other people, right? So you want your market, your community, your community that you're building to recruit other people, and it's not you doing it anymore, right? And that's, everybody shares the lift on that. And most companies do not consider this. They think it's like, oh, I got to promote. And then their promotion and advertisement is just that, trying to get somebody to buy something from you, rather than, activating, waking them up, and giving them the tools and the means to help other people through this market. Anything else we want to cover on this before we hop to the next?
Nope.
So what happens is we go from from force to power, right? So we go from, I got to go create all of it. I got to get everybody to come to us. I got to go out and find somebody. I have to go to this networking event to go get this person. I got to call this many sales calls. I have to. All this doer energy, right? All this doer energy, which is force. It's force. I'm not talking about inspired action, because you still got to do this, just like we're doing this presentation today. And there was a lot of work that went into this, right? But it didn't
feel like force.
Of work. Right. Doesn't feel like force, right? It's his power. So now we're talking about shared purpose and beliefs. Denise and I wouldn't have found each other if we weren't sharing these sort of core beliefs and what we're doing and having shared experiences. I believe Denise or I are connected at a soul level for many incarnations. I know that for a fact, but point being is, this is the truth. You want to go from, I got to do all the work, to everybody else is working with me, and the opportunities are coming to me.
Yeah.
I don't have to go out and find them. They come to me. Right? And that's moving from force to power.
That's inbound marketing.
Yep.
And it is has been around for a really long time. And one of my old bosses used to say, when we talked about new business development, he would say, I don't know, when we do stuff and are out there, people call, and when we stop doing stuff and are out there, people don't call. And I thought it was brilliant, because it is true. Inbound marketing is way more valuable than outbound marketing. And frankly, it is the difference between force and power. Mm-hmm. And the way to remember this is that when you say use the force, Luke, okay, that's the opposite.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
it really is the opposite. Right? So that's how you remember the difference between force and power.
And if you're, this person I reached out to this person at a trade show and then they're not responding to me, I better send them a reminder. Well, I better send them a third reminder. I better send them a fourth reminder. Now we're working on force. It should turn effort into effortless meeting, right?
And everybody can relate to that, because
right.
LinkedIn messages and look at all the emails you get. It's like, stop. If I haven't responded, it means I'm not interested in you right now, and it's not the right time.
And you talk about the sales funnel, the idea of that funnel and filling up that front end of it with the numbers game, right? Well, it's a numbers game when you're coming from force, right?
And it's
you're trying to brute force it.
Yes, and it's flow when you're not.
Yeah, and then the person
flow that we talked about in episodes past, the slipstream that you enter, the ability to manifest is all here, and to just connect into something that you can't see but you believe in.
And ultimately, right, this is what happens. If you go from follower to leader, and I think the important part here is how you define your market is your community. That's the group of people that you're around. That's the frequency. If you're vibrating at a high level frequency, you're going to attract others that work at that high level frequency. And if you're going to work at a lower level frequency, you're going to attract a lower level. And the lower level is just harder. It's just harder.
We're in the agency business, loosely coined. And I always used to say, it's like, okay, you got a client that is like a 5, and then you're operating at like a 9. It doesn't work. And the opposite is true too. It's like if you're in a 5 agency or a 3 agency, you need a 3 or 5 client, or it's just not going to work. Right. And those things, you read into what that is. It's like, is it sophistication? Is it prowess, marketing prowess? No, it's really kind of vibration, because you're vibrating at the same sort of level, meaning you share values, you share education, you share the concept of opportunity. When you vibe the same, you kind of go up. So you got to find the right partner to do it with. When you're talking about that, you really cannot. The qualified lead people who reach out to you all day long, every day, no, that doesn't really. That's not how it goes. I will get you 30 leads a week. It's like, no, that's actually not how it goes. Maybe if you're a 2 agency or you're 2 client, okay. But the way it goes, when it makes sense, when the synchronicity is happening, is the power that you all have and the attraction that brings you together.
And it's really goes back to giving more value than you receive, and being prepared to give everything and receive nothing, because the process of giving itself is the reward, right?
Yes.
And the courage it takes to build a growth strategy with this knowingness saying we're going to give all of our content for free. We're not even going to gate any content. There's not going to be any, because lead generation is in some ways can be a very forced thing. So when people we're going to give this content away. And if people are ready and they want to talk to us, they'll come to us because that's right. And that's it. And even if you're missing your revenue targets in the short term, I promise you, in the term, that's the sustainable model. But in the short term, it may feel painful. It may scare you. That's part of the letting go that we all have to do of the old economic models and the business processes that are associated with those old economic models, right?
Yeah. And
that takes courage of us and what we're doing. You know, Denise and I and the team, we try to live this every day. And it's I'm telling you, it's not easy, especially if you might have a loss one month, knowing that there's a bigger thing happening. And, you know, if you keep filling the bucket in other people's buckets, eventually yours is going to overflow the most. Right. So that's, I think, more than anything that we say in this is sort of a method of getting there. And there's so much more detail to this, of course. But I would say this: if you just go out there with a positive intent and you're trying to build something pure around something that you're trying to solve and you're recruiting others, people will come to you and they will gravitate to you and you're operating at that level. All this other stuff is tactical and physical, if that's the right term. You know, winning it at a spiritual or frequency level, that's the strategic win. That's the strategic strategic strategy. It's strategery, right? So
strategery.
But Denise, closing thoughts. What would you like to share?
Oh dear, I didn't know that was going to happen. What would I like?
Well, no, I mean we're 8 minutes over. We can keep going.
My closing thought is, if you're going to recommend this podcast to anyone, it's like, to try it out. You know, we have built to this point, and we've dissected, but this particular podcast is kind of where we're coming from. This is the whole shebang, and we mean it, and we believe it, and we're all in on it. And from here, we're going to go deeper on a lot of things. So it's super fun to have you all here listening to us.
Yeah, this is, like I said, this is the reward, being able to do this, right? And even if we have 0 followers, which we're not, we have multiple growing every day, and I just mean that this is one of our purposes, and we're coming from a very genuine place, and we're practitioners. We're experimenting with this ourselves, and what we realized is you're either all in or you're not. Because once you get to a certain point or a certain level, it's really hard to go back to, because you just don't want to go there at an energy level anymore.
Yeah.
And so I could promise everybody it's not easy, but I can also promise that once you're on the other side of this, it's just a totally different place, individually and as a team operating. And there comes a whole nother level of confidence, and it's even more fun is when the universe plays back with you, right? And
it is so fun. Yeah. It is so fun that it's just like, I just did that.
You're like, I can't make this stuff up. My gosh, like that, how? And I mean, we'll keep sharing examples and things like that in the future. But again, you know, we usually end with a sort of meditation and such. I don't necessarily have one. An affirmation or statement, and we can dive in. I don't know if there's something new, but maybe let's just talk about gratitude and just grateful for everybody coming in. And it's a little bit of a prayer, but it's also just the point of just all of us just sending out the good positive vibes. So you want me to go, Denise?
You can go.
All right. So everybody, please close your eyes. We're going to do 3 breaths. We're going to remember, breathe in for 3 seconds, hold for 3 seconds, breathe out for 3 seconds. And when we breathe out, I want you to feel all of the tension, everything releasing out of your body. So you just feel just pure light. So breathe in the light, breathe out the force, the fears, the pain, all of that. So breathe in, hold, breathe out. Again, breathe in, hold, breathe out. Breathe in, hold, breathe out. And now I want you all to just picture yourself in just a beautiful, just hold that an event in your mind that was just so beautiful. It was the birth of your first child, winning the game that you want, a new customer. Just hold that and remember how you felt in that process and how you feel. Just hold that in your heart, just that abundance, that gratitude. And just breathe into your heart. Feel your breaths, just breathing into your heart center. Just feel yourself expand. And I want you to talk to the doer in you. The doer that's scared. If I don't make this call, if I don't send this email, if I don't follow up with this person, I want you to just thank your doer in you. Thank you for all their hard work. But now you know that doer is actually holding you back. I want you to just let go. Just let go of it. Let go of all that force, making all those calls. And I want you to project yourself, seeing yourself in your ideal position, in your ideal place. And if you're trying to get more clients or customers, I want you to see your email filled with all of these requests. And just hold that hard space of how excited you are, knowing that they came to you. You didn't have to do all the work. You only had to do what you thought at that time that was inspired based on feeling good and abundant, not unscared and having to feel like you have to do more effort, to do 10 more times. That's force. But come from a place and hold that thought of that call you've been waiting for that investor, that email. Just hold it because it comes to you now. You don't have to do. You only do things that inspire you, that you're excited about, that you love, and come from that love space. Take one more deep breath. Hold and breathe out all that force. Now open up your eyes, please. Now, I don't know if that's helpful for everyone, but doing that and loving the doer in you, but understanding the doer needs to take the back seat now. And I want everybody to try over the weekend to only do things that they're inspired to do. Like I feel good. I want to go do this. I'm going to reach out to this person because I want to, and just see what happens. But when you find yourself in a place of like, oh, I need to make more calls because this isn't going to happen, or you're finding yourself in that doer force mentality again. And that's where you can start to uncover the difference of inspired action versus forced action, coming from power versus coming from force. And that is in everything you do, starting off with your individual actions. And I understand that you may have a boss, maybe a CEO that doesn't understand what we're talking about and is pushing you. But maybe this is the time you let that go. See what happens. Maybe it's time to opt out of all this force and see what happens. Maybe if there's a customer that's demanding you to be force all the time, maybe we let those customers go because we have to make space for the new. And if there's no room for something new to come in your life, it can't come in. Mm-hmm. So let's clean those cobwebs out this weekend, even knowing that this takes a while. And even I find myself in force sometimes. So Denise, any last thoughts?
I hope everybody enjoyed it.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend, or whenever you're joining us. And so grateful you're here. And please spread the word. Please don't forget to subscribe. Please share. Helps with the algorithms on YouTube and others.
Yes, please.
And we bless you and bless everyone and all of us karmic capitalists, because we're creating a new reality together, and it's exciting. So thank you.
Thank you.
See you, everyone.